on, y'all! Hey everybody, it's Andy Kushner with the Wedding Biz, and today is another episode of The Next Level, in which we discuss the most recent guest interview and bring out a few topics and highlights and translate them into specific tactical strategies that you can use to bring your business to the next level. And this week, Melissa is out of town, and so once again, we are so fortunate to have our guest co-host be Sean Lowe of the Business of Being Creative. Hey, Sean.
Hey, how are you?
Good, man. So good to have you on the show again. Really appreciate you doing this.
Love it. Always love it.
Yeah, well, let me tell everyone. So Sean's company, Business of Being Creative, is a wonderful consultation company that has helped not only the who's who of our industry, but also numerous up-and-coming small business owners. And I interviewed Sean and released his episode on February 19th of this year. So I urge everybody to go back and check that one out for sure. And so today's guests are Kelly McLeskey of A Savvy Event, which is a wonderful planning company, and Nancy Luchin of Nancy Luchin Design, another very successful company. And they often work together on events, and they are also partners with the wedding conference Oh So Inspired. And I wanted to interview them together so that I could better understand not only a little bit about their own backstories, but also what does it take to partner with someone? You know, what was their story? Regardless of the segment of the industry, what does it mean to partner with someone? How do you put that together? And to examine some of the dynamics involved. And also, Oh So Inspired is a very interesting conference in of itself. And so I certainly wanted to hear from the founders, what is it that motivated them to even put it together? And it's a very successful one. And so, Sean, in terms of, you know, the first topic that grabbed my attention, it really struck me how much fun that the two of them have together. And you know, obviously that level of energy that they bring is something that is going to work for them in so many ways. Now, obviously, not only the events that they both do and when they work together. And I remember Nancy talking about how much fun Kelly is, the energy that she brought even when she first met her, and how it really helps take away the stress of all the, I hate that word vendors, we'll say partners, working together at events. And obviously this translates into what they ended up doing together with the conference.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple points, actually. I thought it was really fascinating because knowing both of them as I do know them on the, apart from you're in the interview, they're both very, very successful, powerful women, and they're both very, very driven in what they do, and they're both very serious. So I love the idea that on the juxtaposition of that is that they take that energy and they then commit to fun, right? They commit to the idea of two experts getting together to create something magical, and they do it with a sense of humor and style and grace that I think is something that the industry needs more of, right? Is that, you know, the thing I want to make sure that I would want to hear and want to know, and what I do know from both of them, is that don't mistake fun for whimsy, right? And so they're really powerful in that, right? And I think that that's something that everybody can take away, is that, you know, the expectation is that you're going to be truly professional and then have a sense of camaraderie and a spirit of fun when you're going through this, because it is so stressful. It is so intense to get that day exactly right, no matter what your role is. And so that you need to surround yourself with those who are of like mind and supportive of you, no matter how you approach things, right? So that what happens is that you create this, like you say, community and teamwork. And I think everybody benefits, you know, not only the client, but also the businesses, because you're going to be doing it again and again and again and again. I think that's what is really important, is that, you know, Kelly, and it comes through in the interview, right? They've known each other for years, and that is to the benefit of every client that they work with together. So I loved it.
Yeah, and I would add, like how you're talking about it, and really both of them. I mean, I was able to experience that both Nancy and Kelly have a real equal sense of excitement, energy, and that fun. Though it was interesting the way Nancy originally told the story, that when she first met Kelly, Kelly first kind of brought it to the event. And I would say that each of us entrepreneurs who are running our own businesses, we set the tone, first of all, for our team. And so I think it's really important. You know, in a lot of these interviews, we talk about not only keeping things upbeat and positive, but also, you know, obviously every event is going to have something that's going to go wrong, you know, and there's going to be these various stressors, and it's up to us, the ones who are in charge, to not wear it on our sleeves. Stay calm. Obviously, our clients can't see it, but also our teams and also the rest of the people we're working with. I mean, there's a different way of dealing with it, and I know Kelly talked about that too, and Nancy, that even when they work together and when they do have serious problems and challenges at the events, Kelly, like you said, bottom line, they are definitely serious. They really take it seriously. However, it's with this perspective of, you know what? Okay, we can figure this out. And how Kelly said she even laughs at it. I would love to get to the point where I can laugh at a problem, but I get what she's getting at. And so again, we set the tone for our team. And at an event, given that the planner is really the umbrella over everyone, the head planner needs to set the tone for their team and all the partners, the frienders that they're working together with, right? So
yeah. I also have a point that I think is important, right? So I think what is really very cool about what Kelly and Nancy have done together is that they really appreciate how the styles are going to match. But I also want to say it doesn't mean that you can't be equally successful without that style, right? I've definitely seen and been around many planners who are dead serious on site and are really not joking around at all. And every stress is very high because that's how they work, right? And their team around that is there's nothing jovial about it. And it's also successful, right? I think really the bigger and larger point is that you have to surround yourself with like-minded people. You have to surround yourself with those who are going to get the way you do things, regardless of talent and even professionalism or whatever it be. It just is meaning that, Kelly could be surrounded with, theoretically a florist that's more talented than Nancy, and has, bigger, better offering. How, but they each could. But if that person is really dour and serious and not very fun to be around, according to Kelly, it's not going to work out, right? So I think it's like anything else, like any other relationship, I think it's incredibly important to appreciate that it works in a business context too, is you have to surround yourself with people that think the way you do when it comes to getting through these situations, and respect the fact that, there's many different ways to do it, and that you have to appreciate, the people around you think the way you do is, I think, the largest point.
Well, something about that too that I caught that they talked about in the context of this was that they said everybody should be a partner and everybody should be a collaborator with you, and that, I believe, is another reason why the two of them work so well together. Don't you think?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And another point in this interview that I thought was really interesting was the conference itself. I mean, Oh So Inspired, and what it was that inspired them to come up with this idea. And the way it started was talking about their own burnout. And I believe it was, I think Kelly in particular was at the point of a crossroads. I love how she was very open with this and vulnerable with it on the microphones. And she came to the point where she had been doing it for a certain amount of years and was just simply feeling burnt out. And then talking to Nancy, and I think Nancy had some sense of that as well, and how, in a sense, they were creating this type of a conference to address their own issues with it and needing to be re-inspired, and also recognizing that it's a lonely industry. I mean, we're working together in the end. We teams and all of that, but being a small business owner is a lonely position to be in. And there's these struggles that all of us are facing in any small business, let alone an emotionally, a very high emotional one like our industry. And so that is where the seed came out of, to create this conference. And you think about the title, Oh So Inspired. That's what the heart of this is all about.
Yeah, and I think that what's really fascinating about it is what you're talking about, is like the loneliness and appreciating that the struggles you have are not are not unique to you, right? And that you, just by surrounding yourself with those who are kind of going through the same issues you are, and doing it in a way where it's not that it's you don't have to work on resolving them, but that you can find yourself connected to people that are in the place where you are, I think is just, it's an amazing place to to go and restore. I mean, they happen to be in, what I love about it too is that they Kelly lives in wine country. The conference is in wine country in Northern California. And the idea of it is to have that balance of freedom to get back. What I love most about it with the Also Inspired part is that what they're trying to do, which I thought really came through in the interview, is they want to get back to why you're in the business in the first place, right? As much as every business is meant to be, to support you financially, there's no question about that. But the reason that everybody gets into this business is because they're an artist and they want to tap into that creative part of themselves and nurture that part. And sometimes you have to get out of the idea of what you're doing creatively, specifically for money, and get back to that place of just being an artist and surrounding yourself with artists that are, going to inspire you to keep going, right? As an artist first, right? Business person second. That's what gets depleted, right? You spend all your day doing the very thing that you love to create and you lose the joy of creation. And I think that's the beautiful part of what they're trying to do. And I love that, right? Because if you get back into the place of creativity, then the world starts to become opportunistic again.
Well, yeah. And also they create this environment that allows people, actually encourages, supports people to be vulnerable. That was a whole nother aspect of it. And they also, I like how they keep it small. I think it's 85 to 100 people. They do have a max on it. And they have a fair amount of speakers so that there's also a good ratio between them. And you get to really hang out with speakers who have, more experience. They tend to. But again, I want to come back to that, to really that foundation of vulnerability, creating an environment where people can really let go and share. And you mentioned Sonoma, that was also a very purposeful decision for them to keep it there because of the atmosphere of that part of the world in the spring. And so I love that they're thinking the details, the physical, I mean, like we do in our industry for a planet, right? The physical details and you're addressing all the senses. It's beautiful. The smells there, all of that. And I also remember speaking with them that I surmised that even outside of the actual seminars and the workshops that they do, and that's another aspect of it, is they do these, workshops that help take people out of their comfort zone, which is a really good experience. But that, I asked them, I said, well, I imagine that the attendees are really carrying on these conversations even beyond the four walls of the room of the conference. And they were saying, yes, actually, that's a big moment, walking back and forth and at the end of the day and during the meals. And so they've created this wonderful 3-day, just incredible support group, where people are there for each other. And I want to back up for a moment too. I talked about how they talk about, people are burned out, people are having struggles, need to be re-inspired. I want to point out it's not just at the beginning of your business that you deal with struggles. They were talking about, and when I interviewed Preston Bailey for the second time a couple months ago, he had gone through something just 3 or 4 years ago. Who would know? So this struggle we deal with comes and goes, and I think it's just a part of life with any small business, let alone this one that we're in.
Yeah, well, I think the struggle is always, regardless of whether that struggle is financial or artistic or, just whatever it might be, it's a struggle because, in essence, you're peeling an onion, right? So as you get confronted with what might be there and whatever challenge might be in front of you, it's the question of, can you go deeper into yourself, right? Or do you give into the fear, which we talked about and that was, lots of the things that we've done in our next level work. I won't call it work. It's really fun. So the theme of the day is fun. Is the idea that, hey, whatever you're confronted with is which way do you turn? And like what Kelly was saying, that she's burned out, she was going to give up. And, I can say that I hear that quite a lot in my career because you get confronted with what really matters to you. Have you been running from yourself? And fear is exhausting, right? If you're scared of going broke, you're scared of taking on this challenge or of whatever project this is, too small, too big, right? At a certain point, you just kind of got to give up the ghost, right? And just say to yourself, what really matters to me? And that happens in the beginning, the middle, the end. It happens all day long, right? Because we have to look in the mirror and say, what matters, right? And that's the hardest thing in the world to do. And I think that's really what the two of them are really good at doing for each other, right? And I think that's to get back to the spirit of partnership and the people you surround yourself with, which is why you're in this, right? You're part, as much as anything else, you're part of a team. And also individually, where you can find people that are in that struggle with you and deciding to, kind of connect that way, right? And maybe learn a few things and as you decide what's next for you. But it's really that. And I think that's a big part of Also Inspired. So you're right. It's like the idea of, we're all in a place of challenge. Right? And different, right? Different from when you first start to the middle to the season pro, but still challenges nonetheless. Yeah.
I think all of this is very encouraging and positive. That again, they've created this environment where you can deal with it. And Sean, I want to ask you one more thing before we close. You have clients. I mean, this is what you do. You're dealing with creatives. You're helping them to get through these kinds of issues, build their businesses further, all of that. And I imagine that. Well, first of all, I know you have a whole range of clients. From people who are at the beginning stages on to people who are very well known. And, people out there might think these very well known people don't have these issues. Obviously they do, and you're working with them. So when it comes to the topic of fear, I would think that must be something, and I've certainly dealt with it plenty of times myself. I imagine that is a really big issue that you are running into with all of your clients is fear. Does that come up a lot in your sessions with them?
Every day. Every single day. And what's really developed for me about fear is that it's irrational, right? And of course, everybody knows that. But in that irrationality, we start to weave a story together that, quite frankly, when you really go deep into it, the fear, right, is misplaced, right? Because the true fear is something else. And so that can really ground that. The true fear is that you're going to be judged. The true fear is that you're going to be judged as not worthy, right? But the fears that get manifested are, the client won't hire me, or I won't make enough money, or wow, I don't know if I can keep going with this person, right? It's all, whether that's an employee, a client, another vendor, all of those things, and then it just kind of like it's like a ripple in a pond, that kind of fear, that pervasive fear, like a drowning victim,
and then builds and builds and builds.
Right. And flailing. And eventually it's not getting back to the core fear, which is, does it matter? Right? Does it matter? Does what I'm doing matter? And the real question and the real fear is that the answer might be no.
Ooh.
Right?
Boy, you're getting to the heart of it there.
Yeah. That's the hardest thing for me. And I think that's what you can take away from this interview, because the question is, does it, right? And sometimes you can't answer that question alone, right? You have to decide with somebody else. And as you talk, it kind of reveals itself, right? Because if the answer is no, then you have to give yourself permission to stop, right? And that's really hard, right? I mean, and I want to say it's better to give yourself permission to stop when it doesn't matter than to convince yourself that you must keep going because of whatever. You have employees, you have a family, you have this, you have that, because there's never going to be a chance where you're going to feel successful, right? There's never going to be a chance where you feel joy, right? It's never going to work out, right? Versus the other, where you get to this place of like, it really does matter to me. It really is. Me being seen as an artist, me being, this essence of what I'm here to do brings me everything. From there, you can build everything, right? And so, the idea of fear is like delving into it. I mean, we could talk for hours and hours about fear.
Yeah.
Because I think it drives people to this place of a story and to create things, and even in their businesses to create kind of things where they think that they're really, helping a client when they're doing the exact opposite. A very quick example there would be, hey, a client wants to do something that you don't really want to do. If you're a planner, they want to go do flowers before you do the catering, and you love to do catering first. Right. Well, the clarity is like, no, we do catering first, but most people don't. They'll give into that, and they'll give into the client's fear, right? And they'll go and do that stuff, which they do in the guise of creating trust, creating support, saying, hey, I'm there for you. But in doing that very thing, they undermine themselves, right? Because it's not actually up to the client to determine the order of things. It's up to them, right? And yet they do it. And that would be a very quick example of how fear can just really undo you.
There's so much that I can say here. And what I'm going to do is hold back, John, and have you on the show another time. And we'll dig in for a good hour on this stuff. But listen, John, thank you so much for joining us today. today. And want to thank all of you for listening to another episode of The Next Level. Before I tell you who is next week's guest, which is very exciting, I want to mention that you can go to our website at theweddingbiz.com, sign up for our email list. Melissa will eventually be catching up on all the episodes and giving even more tips and inspiration and education than we do on this show. So be sure to sign up for that. You can also follow us on Instagram at Wedding Biz Show. And Melissa runs that and it does a great job with it. So please follow us on Instagram at Wedding Biz Show. And next week's episode is going to be about Paula LeDuc. Paula is one of the original fine catering and event production companies, massively successful out of San Francisco. She founded her company in 1980. Her story is just extraordinary and, like everyone else, so educational, so inspirational. So please tune in next week for that. Thanks again for listening to The Next Level, and this is The Wedding Biz.